Imagine this. You spend your entire life trying to fit in. You mold your speech, your clothes, your choices, all in pursuit of approval. You bend under expectations that aren't even yours, and little by little, you drift away from who you truly are. You fear judgment, seek validation in ever-shifting glances, and cling to the idea that your worth depends on how the world sees you. But what if everything you've been taught about caring too much is actually what's holding you back from living? What if the key to confidence, freedom, and even success lies not in control, but in letting go? Michel de Montaigne, a 16th-century thinker, explored this paradox deeply. While the world around him collapsed into wars, he retreated to a silent tower, not to escape, but to observe the human soul. His essays sought not to preach, but to liberate. His philosophy, far from abstract, is a compass for those who wish to live with lightness, authenticity, and inner peace. Montaigne challenged conventional notions of success, questioned the need to please, and pointed to a path of serenity through detachment. In this video, we'll walk that path. We'll examine the anxiety of approval, the fear of failure, the addiction to control, and with Montaigne as our guide, discover what happens when you stop caring about what never truly mattered. 1. Control is an illusion. From childhood, we're taught, if we control everything, we'll be safe. From mistakes, judgment, failure. As if life were an exact equation where effort, planning, and worry could keep everything in order. But Montaigne, observing human nature with clear-eyed honesty, saw what few dare to admit. Control is mostly a fantasy. We obsess over the uncontrollable, others' opinions, unpredictable futures, how we're perceived. In this exhausting struggle, we drain the very energy that could fuel creation, presence, and love. Montaigne nearly died in a horseback accident, a confrontation with life's absolute fragility. No plan, no precaution, no obsessive worry could have saved him from that randomness. And paradoxically, that's when something clicked. To live is not to control. To live is to accept the flow. He wrote, "My life has been full of terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened." This simple phrase dismantles modern anxiety. How many worries do you carry for scenarios that never materialized? How many nights have you lost predicting futures or correcting pasts? How many mental dialogues have you rehearsed, hoping to control reactions that never came? The truth? The pursuit of control distances us from reality. Ironically, the tighter we grip, the more unstable everything feels. Montaigne invites us to observe this obsession with tenderness, then gently release it. Because life, at its core, isn't a machine to operate. It's a living organism, full of surprises. It flourishes only for those brave enough to dance with the unpredictable. 2. The pursuit of approval is a trap. An invisible force silently guides many of our steps, the desire to be accepted. From childhood, we learn approval equals reward, a proud glance, praise, a sense of belonging. So step by step, we build our identity around what pleases others. But Montaigne saw with surgical precision, this path leads to a maze. When we live for external validation, we lose touch with what's authentically ours. He wrote, "To understand myself, not to convince others." He sought not applause but authenticity. Perhaps that's why his words still resonate. He had the rare courage to think for himself in a world demanding conformity. The chase for approval is subtle. It's in our clothing choices, silenced opinions, constant adaptation. We avoid discomfort, avoid disappointing, but in doing so, we lock ourselves in a cage. And the cruelest irony? When approval finally comes, it satisfies nothing, because it wasn't given to our true self, but to the mask we wore to be liked. Montaigne offers another way. Know and accept yourself so deeply that others' opinions lose their power to shape or wound you. Ask yourself, who are you trying to please, and why? How many of your life's decisions, career, love, purpose, were made from fear of judgment, not genuine desire? When you stop seeking approval everywhere, you discover something rare: self-acceptance. And from there, relationships grow honest, choices feel lighter, and life becomes unmistakably yours. 3. Letting go isn't weakness. It's power. Contrary to stereotypes, detachment isn't indifference. It's clarity. It's the wisdom to distinguish what deserves your energy from what only drains you. Montaigne understood this paradox deeply. He saw how people cling to outcomes, expectations, idealized self-images, and how this breeds relentless tension. He didn't advocate renouncing life. Quite the opposite. To live lightly. To act with dedication but without obsession. To love without possession. To seek without losing yourself in the chase. In his retreat he wrote, "Not out of obligation, but curiosity. Not to be recognized, but to understand myself. And in that space of non-forcing, the soul flourishes." How often have you achieved something precisely when you stopped pushing? When you quit trying to impress, conquer, or prove? It's as if the universe responds to surrender with harmony. This is the paradox of letting go. The less you need to prove, the more natural your presence becomes. The less you try to control, the more things align on their own. This isn't luck, it's presence. It's coherence between what you feel, think, and do. It's the magnetism of those who no longer beg for acceptance, because they've found a home within themselves. 4. To be human is to be imperfect. Montaigne was no saint or tragic hero. He was a man acutely aware of his flaws, and perhaps that's what made him wise. He endured the loss of 5 children, his best friend's death, and France's Civil War. Yet pain didn't harden him. It made him real. Instead of shutting down, he turned inward. He left politics, renounced power, and withdrew into his tower, among books and silence. In his essays, he exposed his soul with rare honesty, confessing vanity, weaknesses, fears, contradictions. And it's this vulnerability that made him universal. He wrote, "I don't portray myself fully, only as I see myself at this moment." In that line lies a liberating truth. No one is constant, no one is perfect, everything moves. To accept this is to shed armor, to stop performing an ideal version, and finally inhabit your humanity. In today's world, where everyone competes in perfection, Montaigne is an antidote. He reminds us, to be human is to contradict yourself. To change your mind is a sign of inner life. To embrace imperfection isn't weakness, it's freedom. 5. Detachment in relationships. The highest form of closeness. If there's one realm where letting go reveals its power, it's relationships. Montaigne saw how we become hostages to each other, not out of love, but fear, of rejection, loneliness, inadequacy. How often have you tried to reshape someone? How often resented them for failing expectations they never knew existed? He realized, suffering in relationships stems not from differences, but from our attempts to control, correct, own. He wrote tenderly of his friendship with La Boétie, a bond that demanded nothing, simply was. For him it was a revelation, to love without trying to possess. He proposed a radical ideal: relationships rooted in presence, not demands, in giving, not domination. Here's the paradox: the harder you squeeze, the more the other slips away. The more you let them be, the more they choose to stay. Freedom in relationships isn't the absence of connection. It's refusing to turn the other into a mirror of your insecurities. True meeting of souls happens when two people walk side by side, not out of obligation, but choice. 6. The moment. Everything changes. There's a quiet, almost imperceptible moment when something inside you releases. It's not defeat, not weakness. It's wisdom born not from reason, but from sacred exhaustion. The moment you realize, you don't need to control everything. You don't need to constantly prove your worth. Carrying endless anxiety is meaningless. Montaigne knew this moment well. His philosophy was born from it. To surrender isn't to give up. It's to reconcile with life. He didn't preach passivity but action free of anguish. A life engaged yet unburdened by guarantees. He understood. A profound peace emerges only when we stop resisting life's impermanence. And this peace is revolutionary. Because when you release control, you become lighter. With that lightness, you see clearer, act bolder, and open to the unexpected. What happens when you stop worrying about opinions? You speak more truthfully. What happens when you quit chasing perfection? You act more courageously. What happens when you release fear of failure? You create, love, live. For Montaigne, surrender wasn't escape. It was presence. It was ending the war with reality and beginning to dance with it. Here's the ultimate paradox. The less you try to control life, the more it aligns. Because in letting go, you finally become yourself. And the world responds to that truth with harmony. Conclusion: what remains when you let go? Montaigne left us a quiet legacy, not rules or formulas, but the art of being whole in an imperfect world. He taught us, obsession with control is the opposite of freedom. People-pleasing is the enemy of authenticity. Fear of failure is often the only real barrier between us and what we desire. To let go isn't to lose, it's to trust. When you stop caring about what doesn't matter, what does matter begins to bloom. So ask yourself, what are you clinging to so tightly that it's already hurting you? What might happen if you just let go?